All right, so in today's video, we are going to make a bolt. Now, you hear the terms bolt and screws used interchangeably, and that's they do have different definitions by most industry standards. However, a bolt, when you think about your 6 classical machines, screw is one of those, and you use basically in a nutshell. A screw is anything that turns rotational motion into linear motion. So you can see that this nut is moving. Even though I'm spinning it, it's moving linearly. So anyways, for today's video, we will refer to it as a bolt, although you may hear me use the term screw in the sense that it is a simple machine screw, or in the sense of talking about screw threads and bolt threads, you may hear me interchanging that terminology as well. This gets a lot of hype. This gets a lot of attention. It's really nothing more than a simple machine. I mean, it's not like you deal with these things in your everyday life. But it's worth modeling something like this in OnShape for the mere purpose of gaining experience with the software. Now, the first thing we're going to do is extrude a polygon. We're going to do that in our top plane. Click top plane, select view normal 2, I recommend. And then we're going to come up here to our sketch. We are going to make sure we are sketching in the top plane. And I'm going to label this sketch hex head. Now, in this example, we actually have a round head. This is called a carriage bolt. But we're going to go ahead and draw up a hex head bolt. Polygon first. And we want to draw is an inscribed polygon. I'm just going to put it right on the origin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, when you do polygon, the second you click, it wants to adjust the number of sides you have. Just follow those arrows. One direction will give you more sides, the other direction will give you less sides. So follow those arrows with your mouse, and you want to stop at 6. So you get that hex head. Now, if we dimension this circle, which is a construction line, it's going to give us all the parameters, because when we use the polygon tool, it automatically loads it with all of these constraints. So all we need to do is lock it in place and give this circle a dimension. So I'm going to turn my dimension tool on, pull this out, and I'm going to give it a dimension of 0.75. Right. I'm going to go ahead and turn these constraints off because they're kind of distracting. All right, now remember, we can do the click and drag test, and oh my gosh, my battery's low. And we can see this spinning around. So one way to lock that in place is just say, hey, you need to be vertical. Now I must be zoomed in funny because my toolbar is probably different than yours, but if it's not in this drop down, it'll be along this row somewhere. You can get something like that. And now we have our hex head is ready to extrude. So what we'll go ahead and do is extrude, which is Shift+E on your keyboard. And we are going to, I'm going to call this the hex head extrude. It is a solid, it is new material, but it still wants to know which region we want to extrude. We can come over here, click that hex head, and we're going to give that a depth of 0.34. All right, so now we have the hex head of our bolt, and we are good to go. Now, like I said, we're going to extrude the shaft. We're going to cut the threads. Actually, we won't cut them. We'll add them, and then we'll have our bolt done. Like I said, not a major deal. Not like we, again, use it in our everyday life. Sorry, I'm just really enjoying this soda pop right now. Okay, so next thing we need to do is put a circle on this hex head, and that's going to be the shaft of this bolt. So So I've got it selected. I'm going to go ahead and just hit sketch. And then I kind of want to view normal too. So that way we're looking right at it. I'm going to turn on my circle command, which is the C button on your computer if you want to use the keyboard shortcut. And I'm going to draw a circle right in the center of that polygon. I'm going to give that circle a dimension of 0.4. Yes, coffee and Coke goes great together. And then I'm going to extrude that out. We're going to extrude it out to 1.1 inch. But before I do, I'm going to go ahead and name this the shaft sketch. Okay, I can come to extrude, Shift D on your keyboard, and I can select the shaft sketch as my new, and actually or my solid that I'm adding to the hex head. And we're going to make it a 1.1 and enter. Okay, and let's change the way we're looking at things here. You can see that we now have a hex head and a shaft for our bolt. Now we're going to go ahead and draw the thread profile. Now this is mainly about OnShape exposure. It's not like threads are a major huge deal or anything. I mean, I like to focus more on things that we use in our everyday life that we can see around us. Sorry, I gotta take a granola bar snack. But that's kind of what I like to do. I mean, it just makes teaching and learning so much easier when you're dealing with concepts and objects you can see all around you. But, you know, we can't always have our granola bar and eat it too. All right, let's do this thread profile. All right, so what we'll do is we're going to take this edge here and we're going to make a helix out of it. I just moved and then I went boom, boom, boom. So you're going to hit this, okay, and see how it wants to make this spring. All right, and you can adjust this spring like so. Well, what we want to do is bring that spring down that shaft, all right, as a representation of the path that our threads will follow when we add the threads to this shaft. So we got to set the parameters to be similar to how they would be if they were threads on a bolt. And let's just go ahead and call this path for thread profile. And we're going to use height and pitch, okay, in this drop down menu. So we're going to give the height 1.2 is what I said, I believe. And we're going to give it a pitch of 1 divided by 13. That's what you would get. And this is a 1/2 inch bolt, and there's 13 threads per 1 inch on a 1/2 inch bolt. So there's that little tidbit. Well, not always of information, but because you got coarse thread and fine thread, and that, we could do a whole another video on that. Okay. Sorry, I'm fidgeting with our bolt. Let's make that pitch what I just said. 0.0769 2306. You might be able to just enter 13, 1 divided by 13. I know OnShape will do some calculations for you. There we go. For our start angle, let's do 270. And now we can see that that looks like the helix that goes around this bolt. All right, so now that we have a helix, we can sketch the thread profile, which will give us a which will add on and will give us the peaks that you see when you look at a bolt. Now, this thread profile, again, it's not a major concept. It's not like they have entire books on this type of thing. It's all about learning OnShape. This stuff isn't just, you know, major parts of industry or anything else. Like I said, I wish it could all connect to every aspect of our everyday life. But I suppose if it did, there'd be entire books on the subject. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sketch the thread profile. We don't have to beat ourselves up too much over doing something like this because, like I said, it's not like they write entire books on this type of thing. So what you're going to do is you're going to start a sketch in the front plane. And then first thing you're going to have to do is select the end of the bolt and convert it, or use or project or convert onto our plane for sketching. The next thing you'll want to do is sketch the general profile. Now the profile is that shape there of that peak. So remember that we've got the minor diameter, which is the valleys, already there. We need to add all the mountain peaks. So we're going to draw one mountain peak and then just revolve it all the way around, same way a bolt's made. And to do that, we're going to sketch a line from here, here, and here to there. Okay, we're going to close that out. So you should have this trapezoid shape here, right? If you ended up with any relationships that you don't want, for example, this line should not be horizontal or perpendicular to the other lines, then you can always turn on show constraints and delete any of those relationships that obstruct you from doing this next part, which is giving it a dimension, dimensions and locking it in space. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give this a dimension of 60 degrees. And then we're going to give this a dimension of 60 degrees. And then we're going to give this the dimension of 0.08, which it just happens to be right there. Right, and then we're still not quite locked because we can do our click and drag test, I think. Oh, I got dimension turned on. I always do that. Okay, because I can still do this. So I need to tell it how far away it needs to be from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just draw a construction line here. I'm going to draw a line. We're going to use this midpoint. I'm just going to go straight up. And we're going to convert that to a construction line. Okay, meaning that it's just reference geometry. And then that way we can dimension the distance from that center line as 0.25. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and call this thread profile. And now we can sweep this along our sweep path, and we should have threads pop up on our bolt. So the way that's going to look is I'm going to select sweep. What do we want to sweep? The thread profile. What path do we want it to follow? This path. Give it some time to load. All right, now that's loaded, we have these threads that have shown up. And we have completed a bolt. We do have this little thread kind of running off the end here. Just sketch a circle here at the end of the shaft. So what I'm doing is I've just sketched a circle at the end of the shaft here, and then what I want to do is just trim that up. So I could fully define it define it and everything else, but let's just go ahead and do this. Flip that remove around, just hit check. Oh, and it didn't do what I thought it would do. There we go. I had to select merge with all. And there we go. Now we have a bolt. Technically, you could actually remove it in both directions to get rid of that little tail. And then let's just give it a second in position, and let's just make it like 0.1, because the thread actually doesn't start right there. And what that'll do, it's not previewing it very well, but it's actually going to extrude it both directions. And there you go. Now you have a bolt. I'm just going to screw this cap off this white out here and fix some spots in my script. And I'm just going to screw that back on. Huh. You know, I didn't think about that. This whole time, I've just been screwing around. And it turns out there's screw threads all around me.